What it be, what it be, what it do, what it do. It's your host, Dave, with the Dave and Blue Show. Let's go. We lit. Yeah. Tell your mama, your cousin, your bro to like, share, subscribe to the Dave and Blue Show. All right, y'all. It's Friday night, so you know what that means. Major keys time. I got 6 major keys for the University of Michigan going into this game tomorrow in week 3 against Central Michigan. I'll give you guys 3 offensive keys and 3 defensive keys, and we're going to keep it rolling. Let's go. All right. So, key number 1, we always start with offense and with defense. So, key number 1 is for this offense, get the offensive line back in rhythm. We sustained some injuries last week against Oklahoma. Giovanni El-Hadi was injured. I think Sprague and Link might have sustained a little bit of injury, but I mean, as far as just overall offensive line play, we have to get back in rhythm. We have to get back in rhythm because last week was abysmal. Thankfully, I think Central Michigan is going to be a good little barometer for how well we've adjusted to last week, and I think it will get us ready for this oncoming and onslaught of Big Ten play that we're about to face here. We got Nebraska the week after, but we're not focusing on that right now. It's one game at a time. So we have Central Michigan. This is a get-right game for everybody. So the offensive line has to get back in rhythm. What I'm looking for specifically, I just need to see a little bit better on the pulling. I've noticed that when we do pull blocks, our offensive linemen are like kind of slow getting there. It seems like they'll let somebody through like Afobe and Norton just for whatever reason. Pulling is not very good for us. I don't know why. But so just this is a game for the offensive line to get back in rhythm. See if we can start pushing people around again and get back into the swing of things. Key number 2, free Bryce. Free Bryce till it's backwards. Okay? We need Bryce Underwood to be able to throw the ball if he needs to and run if he needs to. I don't know if the game plan is to hold him back a little bit till Big Ten play or what, but at this point we need to go ahead and just let him do what he can do. We all saw the debacle, which was the Oklahoma game, and the fact that he could have ran a few different times, but he didn't. Now, Chip Lindsey has said in his press conference this past week that Bryce Underwood did, in fact, they had at least, I think, 3 designed quarterback runs drawn up for him, but they just never got to any of them. So, I mean, I guess they had in the system, and he said that Bryce does have the freedom to go if he needs to go, so I guess, but I personally, it seemed like he was trying not to run for whatever reason. So I think they need to just let the man throw it around, get his confidence back up because, yeah, he didn't turn the ball over against Oklahoma, but I'm sure that was a little hit to his confidence because he was 9 for 24. And if he's already hard on himself after the New Mexico game, a game like Oklahoma, he's probably going to be even harder on himself. So we need to get him back in rhythm. Free him. Let him do his thing. Let him run if he needs to. Let him throw it around a little bit. Please, please, please. No more bubble screens. No more screen passes if we can help it. I mean, obviously when necessary, but not every pass. Come on. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. But free Bryce. That's one of the keys is let Bryce play. Key number 3/3A, 3B. Chip Lindsey needs to call his own plays and or open the playbook. I'm not sure if Sharon Moore was calling the plays or not last week. I've heard mixed reviews on that, but I'd say let Chip Lindsey call his offense regardless because New Mexico and Oklahoma game plans look totally different, and quite frankly, obviously, both teams had completely different skill levels, but still, I mean, I'd say, open up the playbook. Just kind of like the same thing as freeing Bryce. And then 3B would be receivers need to get open and also need to block. So we need some separation from the receivers, and we need to see some guys running free and clear. There were a few times where guys were running free and clear last week against Oklahoma, but of course the offensive line wasn't in rhythm and they were getting pushed around, and Bryce didn't see open Zach Marshall on one play where and Samaj Morgan as well. So, but we need the receivers to get free, get open and block. The blocking was abysmal last game, so we need more blocking, better blocking. And finally, you need to see more from Jordan Marshall, I think, is 4. If I'm going to have an honorable mention for a major key, I'll call it a minor key. A minor key would be Jordan Marshall in the running game. We need to see Jordan Marshall get some run. And I also would love to see Jasper Parker. But we need to see a little bit more from Jordan Marshall. Seemed like he's pressing these last few games. I'm not really sure what's going on there because, we know he can run the ball. But there was a time where there was a run play, I think it was like a dive or inside zone or something like that, where he just ran. He took the handoff and ran straight into the back of his offensive lineman. But if he had looked up and cut to the left, he had like 15 yards of space. He could have possibly broke it open for a long run, but he ran into the back of his offensive lineman. So the vision, I don't know, maybe needs work, but who's to say? But a minor key is we need to see Jordan Marshall. All right. Defensive keys. The major keys for defense. 1, D-line needs to get depth. Specifically, interior defensive line needs to get depth into the backfield. We need to see our defensive linemen in Central Michigan's backfield, in their quarterback's grill. All 3 of their quarterbacks, because they rotate through 3 quarterbacks. We need our defensive tackles specifically in that backfield. It's kind of alarming how little pressure we've seen over these last 2 weeks from our defensive tackles. But, that's something they can work on, and hopefully we'll see more pressure from the defensive tackles specifically this weekend against Central Michigan. The defensive ends, they've been all right, but it's hard to get your job done as a defensive end if you have no pressure from the defensive tackles, because the offensive line, if they're not being pressured with depth by the defensive tackles, then they can all focus on, 1 or 2 guys, and they can all stop the defensive ends because there's no pressure and no worry from the defensive tackles. So, defensive tackles, interior defensive line, we need to get depth and create major pressure for Central Michigan, and I think we can do that. We need to limit penalties. We had a lot of penalties last week that were just uncalled for, not great. So clean up the penalties. Let's get ourselves in a better position defensively without the penalties, that type of thing. Finally, DBs need to work on creating turnovers. Jair Hill almost got a pick last week. A shout out to TJ Metcalf last week for getting a pick. But we need DBs to be locked down this week. Defense really in general needs to create turnovers, but the DBs specifically, there were a few different times where we could have had interceptions on last week against Oklahoma where we just totally whiffed on them. Jair Hill, to be fair, that was a good play by number 5, but if he caught it on the first touch, then it would have been all right. But the second time, it was on the right side. Brandon Hillman's running across, and I believe it may have been Zeke Berry, but the ball got tipped up, and that should be an interception, but, that's neither here nor there. But all in all, I think this is going to be a game where the team can tune up. No disrespect to Central Michigan, but yeah, it's not going to be pretty for them. I'll give you guys my reaction, my pregame analysis and prediction tomorrow morning, of course, as always. So, the major keys for offense, get the O-line back in rhythm, free Bryce, Chip Lindsey needs to open the playbook, receivers need to block and get open, 3A and 3B for that. Chip Lindsey is 3A, 3B is receivers. 4, this is the minor key, an honorable mention, if you will. We need to see more from Jordan Marshall. And then the defensive major keys. D-line needs to get pressure, specifically from the interior defensive linemen. We need to limit penalties, and DBs need to work on creating turnovers. Minor key for the defense would be wrapping up. We need to see tackles. We need to see wrapping up. We saw a lot of people going for head shots, kill shots, hit sticks, boom sticks, whatever you want to call it last week, and we weren't wrapping up. Now, granted, we were facing a dynamic quarterback, John Machir, but still, we need more from the defense as far as wrapping up goes. Minor key, minor detail that we need to fix up. And yeah, let's get it this weekend, guys. Tell your mama, your cousin, your bro to like, share, and subscribe to the Dave and Blue Show. We lit. Yeah! Let's get it.